Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, when you're watching a young prospect, guy in his early 20s, he's unbeaten. He's knocking everyone out. As you watch him, you see that he's an explosive puncher. Literally looks explosive. Right? As you're watching him, he can go from 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye. And the punches are hard. He makes it look too easy. He starts shamelessly stalking guys around the ring, older fighters. Right? And he's able to literally overwhelm them. They find themselves up on the ropes. They're baffled. They're confused. The guy looks like he's just going to run his way through the division. He looks unbeatable. Now, I could be talking about young Mike Tyson. I could be talking about young David Lemieux. You remember what happened to both guys? Right? Suddenly, Mike Tyson runs into a older fighter with a jab who has an uppercut behind the jab, hits him flush. Even though Tyson knocks the guy down, the guy beats the count, the guy gets back up, gets back to pulverizing Tyson with that jab, and then it's interesting. You realize Tyson doesn't really know how to clinch. You start to notice that Tyson's defense isn't that good. That the bobbing and weaving works in the early rounds, doesn't really work in the middle rounds. Takes too much energy. Suddenly, Tyson's on his back. Or David Lemieux comes out, he's roughing up Marco Antonio Rubio. He looks good. Rubio's getting rocked, just like Buster Douglas got rocked. Right? But Rubio's still hanging around. Then you notice Rubio somehow is getting a jab in. Then you notice Rubio is cutting off the ring on David Lemieux. Then you realize Lemieux really can't fight off his back foot. Then, of course, Lemieux hits the canvas. His corner throws in the towel. Lemieux's unbeaten record out the window. Lemieux then starts to have problems later as veterans start to look at the film and start to see the pattern, the blueprint. Right now in the United Kingdom, there's an unbeaten fighter. This fight's dangerous, right? But you know what? Gambling's all about risk management, isn't it? This fight is very dangerous. Scott Quigg right now is unbeaten. He's walking through guys. Has Jason Booth ever looked as helpless as he did toward the end of his fight against Scott Quigg? I mean, Scott Quigg didn't even have his hands up toward the end. He was just walking down Jason Booth. Greater than 70% knockout ratio. Mid-range hooker, explosive hooker. When he throws hooks, they're explosive. He seems to be moving his hands faster than the next man. Right? And the punches have power. Guys get hit, guys get hurt, guys get dropped. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let me tell you. Rendell Munroe has much more experience than Scott Quigg. Rendell Munroe should not be a plus 160 or higher underdog in this fight. Who made these odds? Think about it. This is how ridiculous the odds are right now. Rendell Munroe has never been knocked out in his entire career. And he's fought guys like Toshiaki Nishioka. Right? He's fought tough guys. Victor Terrazas. But yet he's never been knocked out. And yet the casinos want you to believe that Scott Quigg is practically even money to knock out Rendell Munroe. You know, I came across in researching this fight a sparring session that's really good. You need to look at it. The film right now is on my channel page. It's Scott Quigg against Marco Antonio Barrera. Now let me just say this. Barrera past his prime. But I'll say this. As you're watching the tape and as you notice that Quigg looks faster, looks more explosive, looks younger, you feel that he's younger as you're looking at the tape. It's interesting how in that little short tape, Barrera starts to figure out, as veterans do, that he can land an uppercut to Quigg's body. He starts to hit Quigg to the body with it. Then Quigg, of course, bullies him over to the ropes. Barrera goes over to the ropes. 1 minute, Barrera looks helpless. The next minute, Barrera quickly pivots and has Scott Quigg up on the ropes. Now understand the problem. If you're a mid-range hooker, you fight great on your front foot. You don't fight that well on your back foot. Right? If you're backed up against the ropes by a guy who can hit to the body, like Rendell Munroe did against Victor Terrazas, especially in the 8th round of that fight, where Munroe looks like Andre Ward did against Alan Green. If you have that kind of body attack, if you could take apart a guy's body and drop him off body shots, like Munroe, who's not a big puncher, but who's an excellent body puncher, did to Jose Saez. And by the way, these videos are up on YouTube. Then I really have to ask myself, who set these betting odds? What is it about Scott Quigg that should lead me to believe that Rendell Munroe is suddenly going to lose his ability to fight inside and is suddenly going to lose his defense? I mean, Munroe always has his hands up. Isn't a mid-range hooker, even an explosive one like Scott Quigg, going to have problems with Munroe's defense? Let's go one step further. Isn't the flip side of the fact that most of Munroe's fights go the distance, the idea that he doesn't have the power to knock you out, isn't the flip side of that Munroe has the skills to go the distance? What happens when you take these young, unbeatable Mike Tyson, David Lemieux guys into the later rounds, the deeper waters? Am I supposed to believe that Scott Quigg is going to be comfortable in the 10th, 11th, and 12th rounds against Rendell Munroe? You know what? If you're going to give me a plus 160, if you're going to tell me that I can more than double my money betting on the more experienced guy with the inside game, who's never been knocked out and who has fought the better competition, I'm going to have to take that bet. Right? I like Rendell Munroe in this fight. I think it's a spectacular value play. But I will say this. I would straddle it with Quigg by KO because Quigg's power, like Tyson's power, like Lemieux's power, is special. It wouldn't take him a lot with that hand speed and that power to become the first guy to knock out Munroe. Right? Quigg always has a puncher's chance in every fight. So the way I'm playing this one is I'm taking the underdog. And you can do this because the odds are preposterous. I like Rendell Munroe at plus 160. Straddled against Scott Quigg by KO at, I believe it's like even money, might even be a minus 105. Because you're getting a ridiculous outsized plus 160, you can actually fool around with the numbers and hedge the play so that you win whether Munroe wins the fight by decision or KO, or whether Scott Quigg gets the KO. But understand the risk involved. Munroe has a problem with guys who move. Terrazaz had the lead on him. Nishioka, who beat Johnny Gonzalez, who beat Rafael Marquez. Nishioka, incredibly, fought Munroe on his back foot and had Munroe baffled and won a unanimous wide decision. Right? If Scott Quigg has the discipline to dance, to survive for 12 rounds, to just flash that hand speed long enough to win a decision, then understand, if you take my advice and he's able to win that decision, you lose it all. This is gambling. It's risk-taking, right? I do believe, though, that asking Scott Quigg to dance all night would be as preposterous as me asking Mike Tyson to dance all night. Let me go one step further. Quigg doesn't dictate distance well. You know, when you're fighting Vladimir Klitschko, you're getting hit with that stiff left jab, right? Vladimir Klitschko keeps you busy and keeps you outside. It paces the fight. You can be a great inside fighter. You're not getting inside on Vladimir Klitschko unless you know what you're doing. Scott Quigg is more of a brawler, in my opinion. He's more of a shootout artist, right? I believe sooner or later in this fight, Rendell Munroe is going to start to get inside with regularity. And I believe when he gets inside, he's going to own the latter part of this fight. That's assuming, of course, that he doesn't get knocked out early. But of course, the bet I'm recommending, the hedge I'm recommending, right? Munroe to win at huge odds, straddled against or hedged against, whatever word you want to use, Quigg by KO would protect you if Quigg gets the early KO. Right? That's how I'm playing this. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. We all get excited in boxing when there's a new hot prospect on the block. I believe the odds makers are a bit too excited in pricing this one. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.